We moved to Rosewood Estate 3 weeks ago, but if you'd told me then what I know now, I never would have unpacked a single box. The neighborhood looked like a utopia. Manicured lawns, pastel houses, American flags fluttering from every porch like a Norman Rockwell fever dream. You ever seen those places where every house looks like it was stamped out of a suburban cookie-cutter mold? That was Rosewood. Cloned hedges, symmetrical shutters, identical driveways. People waved like robots and smiled like Stepford mannequins. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and cinnamon candles, like someone was trying just a little too hard to mask something rotting underneath. And now that I think about it, that's exactly what it was. It was my brother's idea. Quiet, safe, great schools, he said over the phone, and I remember laughing at that last one. Since when do we care about school ratings? I asked. We didn't have kids, or even plans for them. He brushed it off. It's just nice here, man. You gotta see it for yourself. He'd moved in a month or so earlier, got a place on Birchwood Lane just one street over. Sounded like he'd found paradise. He kept talking about how friendly the neighbors were. They brought me a pie, dude, a whole pie. Like that was proof of utopia. I figured it wouldn't hurt to try a change. The first week was uneventful. Boring, really. I worked from home, peeked through the blinds occasionally, saw Martha from across the street gardening in the exact same hat and gloves every single day. A guy in Coke bottle glasses gave me a lawnmower to borrow indefinitely. I didn't go to the welcome party. I hate small talk. But even without going, banana bread showed up on my porch, still warm. Everything was pleasant in the way an empty mall at night feels pleasant, quiet, but off. It was like living in a showroom. You could feel eyes on you even when you were alone. Then my brother stopped answering his phone. I gave it a day, then another. Maybe he was busy, I told myself. He did that sometimes, went dark. But by the third day, I got nervous. I walked over. His porch light was on. Car in the driveway, curtains drawn. I knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Louder. Still nothing. I banged hard enough to rattle the frame. That's when I noticed the neighbors standing across the street, just standing, not watching me, not reacting. Their eyes were glassy, distant, like they were looking at a blank screen. I felt something crawl up my spine. I left. I told myself I was being paranoid. I filed a missing person report the next day. The cop behind the desk didn't even pretend to care. He's an adult, she said, like that was the end of the conversation. No questions, no urgency, just a sigh and a form. So I did what any brother would do. I broke in. His front door wasn't even locked. The place was untouched. TV remote on the couch, half-full coffee mug on the counter, phone still plugged in. No signs of struggle, no blood, no note. Just eerie museum-like stillness. On the dining table, I found a yellow legal pad. Pages filled with scribbled names, some underlined, some circled. At the top, one sentence in blocky capitals. They all go to the meetings. At the bottom of the page was a single 10-digit number with no name. I texted it, called it. No answer. That night I got one reply. A spider emoji and one word. Careful. That was all it said, but it was enough to freeze me. The next morning, my front door was unlocked. I knew I'd locked it. I always lock it. On my pillow was a folded note written in a looping, childlike scrawl. Let him go. He's at peace now. You will be too, soon. I threw up. After that, I started texting the number relentlessly. I begged for answers. Hours later, I got a response. A man named James said he knew my brother, said he'd been investigating something, some group in the neighborhood. It's a cult, he wrote. Your brother found proof. He followed them, filmed something he shouldn't have. James sent me a scanned newspaper clipping. It looked like it had been folded and unfolded 100 times. The headline read, "Local cult investigated after 6 disappearances. No charges filed." In the grainy black and white photo underneath, I saw her. Martha. The banana bread Martha. Smiling, apron on, standing next to a man with eyes like puddles of oil. My stomach twisted. I didn't want to believe it, but something in me already did. I returned to my brother's house that night. The front door was open, lights on, shower running. I stood at the threshold, listening. No movement, but the sound of water pattering against tile. That was enough. I didn't go in. I walked away fast, almost running. My hands were shaking the whole way home. That night, James messaged again. If he comes back, don't believe it's him. My heart felt like it had been dunked in ice water. At exactly 10:42 p.m., someone knocked on my door. When I opened it, my brother stood there, smiling, hair wet, holding a six-pack of cheap beer. "Hey man," he said casually. "Sorry I've been out of touch. Just needed time." His voice was identical, but wrong somehow. Too measured. He asked if I wanted to hang out the next day. Said he had a new recipe to try. My brother doesn't cook. Never has. That smile never dropped, even when I didn't say a word and slowly closed the door in his face. The next morning, James was gone. His number stopped responding. No profile pic, just a gray circle. I found a Tupperware container on my porch. No label. Inside, fine, white powder. The note on top was written in red marker. For the recipe. I left it untouched. That night, my brother knocked again and invited me to the Sunday social. "They're making something special this time," he said, grinning too wide. "You'll love it." I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house made me flinch. I kept thinking about that smile, how it stayed perfectly frozen, even when I told him I was tired and shut the door. No flicker of disappointment, no twitch of emotion, just that smile. I sat in my living room, all the lights on, holding a kitchen knife like some idiot in a horror movie. But this wasn't a movie. This was happening. At 3:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. A new message. No contact name. Just, "Say yes and they'll stop watching." That was the first time I realized I wasn't alone. The blinds were drawn, but I felt them anyway. Eyes. Not one pair. Dozens. Hundreds. Watching me through the walls, through cracks in the air. I opened the front door slowly, half expecting to see him standing there again. Instead, there was only silence. The neighborhood was dead still. Not a car passed. No insects. No wind. Even the clouds above seemed frozen. The air smelled faintly of cinnamon again, but now it made my stomach churn. That smell was never pleasant. It was a mask. The next morning I tried calling the police again. This time I used a different department. Claimed I was a visitor passing through. They transferred me. Disconnected. Transferred again. Finally, a tired-sounding voice answered. "Yeah." I gave my name. Silence. Then, "Don't get involved. This is Rosewood business." Click. They knew. They all knew. And nobody was going to help. I looked up that newspaper article James sent me. No results. Not on Google. Not on archives. I even checked the physical library downtown. The local newsreels had been scrubbed, like it never happened. I needed to know what this Sunday social was. I walked to Martha's house just after noon. I had to knock twice before she answered. She looked like she always did. Gloves, hat, apron. But her eyes were wrong. Dilated, no color, just black pits that swallowed light. "Oh, hello, dear," she said like I was her nephew. "Excited for the big day?" I nodded like an idiot. "What time should I come?" I asked. She giggled, actually giggled. "Sunset, sweetie. Wear something clean." Then she closed the door without waiting for a reply. At 5:41 p.m., I saw them begin to gather. Women in floral dresses, men in short-sleeved shirts, children holding wicker baskets. They all moved in unison, like they were part of the same bloodstream. No one spoke, just the shuffle of footsteps as they all walked toward the cul-de-sac at the end of Birchwood Lane. I followed from a distance, ducking behind hedges, staying in shadows. At the center of the circle, they'd set up a long table, covered in white linen, candles at each corner. I counted 37 people, all standing around the table like mourners at a wake. Then my brother walked out. But it wasn't him. His gait was stiff, robotic. His smile stretched like his skin didn't fit right. He stood at the head of the table and raised his arms. "Neighbors," he said, "we gather again in unity and preparation." The crowd responded in perfect unison, in flesh, in memory, in warmth. I watched as Martha stepped forward, holding a silver tray. On it, small glass vials, each filled with the same white powder I'd found on my porch. Everyone took one. Then they all looked up, toward me. I ducked too late. They saw me. I turned and ran. No footsteps followed, but I could feel them closing in, an invisible pressure around my chest like the air was thickening. I slammed my door shut, deadbolted every lock, pushed furniture in front of it. That night I heard humming. Not one voice. Dozens. The same song over and over. A lullaby. Words I couldn't place. From inside the house. I pressed my ear to the wall. Nothing. But when I stepped back, the song began again. It was coming from underneath. I never wanted to check the crawl space. I always hated tight places. But something was down there. I grabbed a flashlight and pried the panel loose. The smell hit first. Sweet, rotting, chemical, like spoiled fruit soaked in bleach. The flashlight flickered as I crawled in. The dirt was soft, freshly disturbed. I found jars, dozens of them, labeled with names I recognized. James, Emily, Carl, Ben. My brother's name was there too. Inside the jars, pieces of cloth, teeth, nails, preserved in some thick amber fluid. My stomach turned, but I couldn't stop staring. At the very back, under the far corner, I found something worse. A small altar, built from bones and bricks. On it, a photograph. Me. A fresh one. Same shirt I wore the night before. My eyes scratched out. Underneath it, a note in the same red marker. Next. That was when the humming stopped. Just cut off. No fade, no echo. I turned around. Someone else was in the crawl space. I didn't see them. I heard them breathing, fast, wet, just a few feet behind me. I dropped the flashlight. It went dark. I crawled backward fast, heart racing, scraping my back on the beams, smacking my head on the pipe. I didn't care. I had to get out. My foot hit something soft. I didn't look back. I reached the exit, burst into my living room, slammed the panel shut. Silence. But my phone was ringing. A FaceTime call. No name. I answered with shaking hands. The screen showed the crawl space. My flashlight was still on. It illuminated a face. Mine. But twisted. Pale. Dead eyes staring up at me. Then it smiled and said, "We're almost ready." I turned off my phone, packed a bag, and drove. No plan. Just away. But every town I stopped in, every motel, diner, gas station, I'd see someone. A face from Rosewood, sometimes behind the counter, sometimes standing across the street, never moving, never blinking. I haven't gone back. I can't. But I know they're getting closer. Last week, I got another note, slipped under my hotel door. No return address. Just one word. Sunday. I didn't plan on answering the knock at my door. It was 2:47 a.m. in a motel off Highway 49, far from Rosewood, or so I thought. I hadn't slept in days. I'd taped blackout curtains over the windows and shoved a dresser in front of the door. But the knocking wasn't loud. It was soft. Patient. 4 taps. A pause. Then 4 more. Like someone was playing a rhythm only I was meant to recognize. I didn't move. I held my breath. But then I heard a voice. Familiar. Calm. "Come on out. It's time for the social." It was my brother's voice. I nearly screamed. That voice hadn't belonged to him for weeks, not since the night he welcomed the neighborhood like a puppet on strings. I checked the peephole. Nothing. Just the empty hallway of the rundown motel. No shadows. No footsteps. Still, I heard him breathe. just one deep inhale, like he was drawing me in. I backed away, grabbed my car keys, and bolted out the bathroom window. I didn't care about my stuff. My wallet, phone, everything. I left it. I drove until the sun rose. Hours. No destination. Just empty roads and panic. When I finally stopped, it was in a diner somewhere in Nevada. I asked the waitress where I was. She smiled too widely and said, "Oh, just down the road from Rosewood, honey." My blood ran cold. I checked my car's GPS. Nothing showed. No trip log. No mileage increase. I should have been hundreds of miles from that place. But I wasn't. I was right back where I started. The diner's wallpaper was the same floral pattern as Martha's kitchen. The music playing overhead, that same lullaby, slowed down, off-key, like a warped record skipping at every other beat. I stumbled outside, tried to scream, but the air was thick, like breathing through syrup. I fell to my knees in the gravel parking lot and looked up. The sky was empty, no sun, just a dull, uniform gray. I checked the time. My watch was gone. I checked my pockets. Nothing. Then I heard footsteps. Soft ones. Barefoot. Approaching from behind. I turned slowly. It was the man from the welcome basket. Same smile. But now his eyes were black holes, leaking what looked like ash. He knelt beside me and whispered, "Almost sunset." I ran again. Into the woods that bordered the diner. The trees felt wrong. Too evenly spaced, too perfectly symmetrical, like someone had planted them as props. I walked for what felt like hours, but the light never changed. No birds, no animals. Just the sound of humming, always distant but always there. I found a cabin, abandoned looking. I broke in, locked the door behind me. Inside, it looked exactly like my childhood home. Down to the framed photos, the worn couch, even the dent in the kitchen floor where I dropped a skillet when I was 12. I stood there stunned when a knock came from the bedroom. Not the front door, the bedroom. Then the humming grew louder, right next to me, yet still behind the walls. I walked toward the sound, drawn like a moth to fire. I opened the door. Inside was my brother sitting on the bed. Not moving, not blinking. His mouth hung slightly open. His teeth were gone. Just dark gums. "They like you," he rasped. "They don't like many." I backed away. He stood up, his neck cracking sideways like a broken doll. "You shouldn't have run." I woke up in a chair, wooden, bound. My arms were tied with something soft, lace napkins. I was in the middle of a room I didn't recognize, but the people around me were all familiar. Every neighbor from Rosewood, Martha, James, that damn man with the smile, all standing in a perfect circle. My brother stepped forward, holding a jar. Inside it, my watch, floating in that same yellowish liquid I saw under the crawl space. "We had to borrow your time," he said. "Now it's ours. But you still have one more gift to give." The crowd echoed. Flesh, memory, warmth. They pulled something from under the table, a large mirror. But it didn't show the room. It showed a house, my house, on the street in Rosewood, but not empty. There was someone inside it. Me. Cooking breakfast, smiling, waving at a neighbor. I blinked. The reflection blinked too. "That's the you who stayed," said Martha, stepping forward. "He belongs. He fits." I struggled against the bindings. "Let me go," I shouted. "I'm not supposed to be here." But the crowd only smiled. "You never left," said the man. "You just woke up late." Then everything went black. No transition, no sound, just absence. When I opened my eyes again, I was in my kitchen, sunlight coming through the windows. My clothes were clean, no bindings. I checked my phone. It was Sunday morning. 7:45 a.m., a knock at the door. I opened it without thinking. A woman stood there with a pie. "Welcome to Rosewood," she said. "Looking forward to seeing you at the social tonight." I nodded slowly, smiled back, closed the door. I sat at the kitchen table. No fear, no urgency. Just a strange calm I couldn't explain. Because I know now what they meant. You don't leave Rosewood. You just wake up in it. And once you do, You never dream of leaving again. I don't know if I ever really escaped, or if this is just the version of me that gave in. I see him sometimes, in the mirror. The one who ran, the one who fought. He screams now, but I can't hear him. And tonight, as the sun sets and the humming begins, I'll be waiting on my porch, smile painted on, ready to welcome the next neighbor who thinks this is just a normal little town, because we all thought that at first.